What keeps someone in this career for over 30 years? Not the schedule, not the pension, service, brotherhood, and responsibility. Today we're sitting down with a firefighter who's lived it, from the Air Force to overseas deployments to Miami-Dade Fire Rescue's Airport Division. This is On the Job, and today we're at MDFR Air Rescue South talking with Firefighter Bernie Montoya. Let's go. Welcome back to On the Job, Alumni in Action. This is the Miami-Dade College Fire Academy official podcast. Today's guest represents what this profession is supposed to look like: consistency, humility, and commitment. We're here with Firefighter Bernie Montoya from Miami-Dade Fire Rescue. He's in Air Force Fire Protection, overseas deployments, Station 11, Miami International Airport, Air Rescue Foam Truck 24. Over 3 decades of showing up. Bernie, welcome to On the Job. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Okay. So as every episode that we have, we start before the badge, before there was ever a Firefighter Bernie Montoya. So let's talk about where it all began. You were born in Medellín, Colombia, and you moved to Miami as a young child. What do you remember about that transition? And tell us a bit about your years as a child.
My transition, my parents moved here from Colombia for a better life. And my dad was involved in aviation. My mom was a beautician. And so I've always been around aircraft. So I grew up in Miami Springs and would see as a kid, played a lot of sports. Loved playing baseball, football, whatever it was. I was always outside. We played outside. So it was a great upbringing growing up in Miami Springs. I'm very grateful for that.
Okay. Now, how did that community shape you, growing up in Miami Springs in the center of Miami?
Well, the first thing, we were one of the few Latin families in Miami Springs, right? So I actually learned how to speak English before I spoke Spanish, and that's a whole other different story. And the neighbors, everybody, it takes a village to raise a child, and really in Miami Springs at that time, that's what it was. Your neighbors looked out after you. If you were over at a friend's house and it was near dinner, they'd call and say, hey, can Bernie stay over? He's going to have dinner. So it was very familial, and it was a great place to grow up. And it was really, Miami Springs in particular was like Mayberry. It still is.
It still is.
Yeah.
Still a unique community inside of Miami-Dade County.
Yeah.
So for those that maybe first time watching the show, we do a pre-phone interview prior to sitting down where I get to know you.
Right.
And you talked about a specific person, Mr. Howard, your high school teacher.
No, he wasn't my high school teacher. His daughter was a friend of mine, Stephanie.
Well, that's what it was.
That's what it was. And, that's where I kind of saw it was more the camaraderie of being a firefighter, but this is going back, and not maybe that we were going to skip school or whatever, but we'd go to Stephanie's house, and every time we happened to go there for whatever reason, Dad was there, but he was there with his friends, and they were all firefighters. And what I noticed was just the camaraderie, the fun, and maybe this is wrong to say, but I think they were having beers, barbecuing in the back by the pool, what I remember. And I remember one of the guys said, just, let me have a sip of beer. I was like, oh, this is cool.
So was it the job that, did you know about firefighter, or was it just the life of the firefighters?
What I knew about firefighting per se, more rescue, was the show Rescue 51.
Okay.
And I grew up watching that, right? DeSoto and I forgot their names, but you know, it's back in the day, and I remember those guys, and I just remember watching and just being pretty much enthralled by it, saying that's pretty cool.
Okay, so at that point, did firefighting didn't seem like a serious path?
No.
It was just something looked like a good way to live at that
Well,
moment due to Mr. Howard's.
Yeah, it just kind of opened a window for me, right? And then, because for my thought, I always wanted to go into medicine.
Okay.
That's what but you know, you really had to be dedicated, and one of the school counselors kind of told me, hey, listen, trying to get into medical school is very difficult, you should look at something else. And you know, and I let myself be swayed by that. Being on the department now for almost 30 years, I've learned you shouldn't be dissuaded by anything. That's really your dream. You go for it, right? And so I knew of a friend of mine that I went to high school with, who turned out to be a phenomenal firefighter for the city of Miami, Hugo Rodriguez. And I think as a rookie, he saved somebody, and I heard about it, and I was like, oh, that's wild. That, you know, it's interesting. So that was more on my radar, and I found out more of my friends from high school. And so when I was graduating, my father kind of told me, hey, listen, you got to do something, you know. And so they weren't really hiring at the time, so the Air Force.
Air Force.
I ended up going to the Air Force.
Okay, so after high school, you tried in the Air Force. You tried to become a combat controller,
Right.
And that didn't happen, unfortunately.
No, it didn't.
Did that feel like a setback at the time?
You know, going into the Air Force, and I tell this to the young people that go in with a guaranteed job, right? So the recruiter is really a salesman, and he's trying to fill up his board with the people he needs for different jobs, right?
Yes.
And so when I got there, it wasn't guaranteed. I didn't know anything. Nobody mentored you.
Hold on one second. For those that can see, this show is as unique as can get. We're at an active airstrip here at Tamiami Airport, what is used to be called Tamiami Airport. It's Miami Executive, so we do have aircraft flying around, and it's pretty noisy, but we're making it happen.
Right.
So
right.
Continue, go.
And so, where was I?
Air Force traffic controller, guaranteed job.
So guaranteed. So when I get to basic training, they basically tell me, hey, listen, there's no more combat controllers. We've got that, and these are the jobs that are available.
Is that our bird coming back? Oh no, that's a sheriff office.
Sheriff's office. So, you know, I'm in basic training, and the recruiter said, hey, listen, you know, we have these jobs, and out of the jobs that were available to me, one of them was firefighter. So boom, I go right back to Mr. Howard, right? And then it was firefighting, security police, admin, and the only thing that really called to me was fireman. And so I decided to try to be a fireman. And then while we're there in basic training, also the special forces, pararescue guys come by to see if there are any volunteers that want to try out. So, you know, I swam in high school, and I thought, yeah, let me try it, you know, and I made it all the way to the swim. And in the swim is where I didn't make it. So out of the 18 guys that were trying out, one guy did, and the reason he made it was because he was prepared, and he had been training for a year.
Wow.
So, you know, I do a lot of teaching at Miami-Dade College, the University of Miami, and one of the things I like to tell my students is about be lucky. And what I mean by that is luck is when preparation meets opportunity.
100%.
Right? And I think for me, that's what happened. I was lucky because at some point I became prepared for the opportunity to be a Miami-Dade firefighter.
And we're gonna get to that now. You ended up choosing fire protection. We have something in common because I was a fire dog myself, United States Air Force in 2001.
Right.
So you attended basic training at Lackland,
Yes,
as
sir.
I did myself. Stepping into the Air Force fire protection, what was that transition like for you when you got your first assignment?
It was like being a kid in a candy store. I mean, it was exciting, you know, being a fireman, dealing with fire trucks, rescue, ARFF, Because there, as you know, I mean, you're given a lot of responsibility early on. You know, you have the rank structure, but right away, I think within like the 3rd month, they had already handed me the radio and said, you know, I was managing a rescue truck, you know, and so it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it a lot.
One of my biggest parts in the Air Force you just brought back is talking to the tower.
Oh yeah.
Isn't that the most nerve-wracking thing as
Yeah.
a young guy? Like
Yeah.
first time talking to the tower, crossing an active runway. I'm sure you have a ton of stories
Oh
that
no,
we could be here for.
I have one that I learned a lesson very quickly.
Okay.
That I thought I had clearance.
Oof.
Fortunately, I was on the approach end, and I ran across the active taxiway, and literally, you know, I say this, and you know, this will go back to my assignment here with my officer that I love a lot, Lieutenant Ramos, but I tend to elaborate on my story, so it almost seemed like I could see the eyes of the pilot. And I'll never forget that. And of course, I got reprimanded, right? You know,
I was going to ask you, how fast was the first sergeant contacting you?
It was like that, you know? And I learned my lesson from that time. Every time I crossed an active, your hands would get a little sweaty, and I would look constantly to make sure that there wasn't an aircraft on fire.
100%. I can relate. So you served at RAF Mildenhall, Chanute, and then Eglin, which was my home station.
Yeah.
You mentioned you also served in Bosnia in '95, but we'll get to that in a little bit. What did those assignments teach you about discipline?
Going to the different
different stations in the Air Force.
Okay, so one of the ones that wasn't mentioned there is McConnell Air Force Base. When I left Mildenhall, I went to McConnell Air Force Base, and if you remember, it was a SAC base. And SAC base is because they're a nuclear base. They have nuclear. Okay. They have those underground silos. And so, you know, discipline was like, you know, I mean, uniform, everything about you had to be, because you never knew when a 4-star general was walking around. And everybody was always on their P's and Q's. So I understood discipline, and I understood, you know, being on time. That's the thing that drives me crazy, is being late. And to this time, I get up at 4:30, just because I never want to be late. And I think in my 30 years on the department, I've only been late once, and that was because I took sleeping cold medicine. And I remember I was already at Station 12, and I get a phone call like at 7:20, and it was the station captain. And he goes, "Montoya, where you at?" And I'm like, huh? And I thought it was on my day off. Because you know that happens, your days. It does. And I've never gotten dressed so quickly and everything. And he was cool about it, because my first time, but he said, make sure it doesn't happen again.
And it hasn't happened again, I'm assuming?
Nope, it's not.
Amazing. So yes, being late is kind of one of my biggest fears too.
Yeah.
I try to show up, and I tell my kids this: early is on time is late.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about Bosnia in '95. You were a station captain over there.
Yeah.
You were young.
I was young.
What did that responsibility weigh like?
We were trying to meld active duty with reserve, and I remember being in charge. And what happened was, since we were reserve, it was really one of the first times that reserve was having a more active role in active duty. And I remember the guys that were active duty not really liking it a lot that you had reservists in charge. So, and they were younger, and it was trying to make a team out of that, and it took a little time. It was there were some rough spots, but it's all learning. You know, everything's not easy, and being in a situation like Bosnia, a place where you don't speak the language, and it was amazing that the MiG, you know, the famous MiG, Russian MiG, right? And they had one parked close by the fire station, and we went over to see the MiG. We were like imposing, and when we looked at the ejection seat, which was still being used, there was no cushion, and it was made out of wood, because they had literally the USSR, as it was known before the Berlin Wall came down, and Russia no longer was Russia. They didn't have money, so they were basically flying. They would fly maybe once a week, and it was a quick, you know, take off and land, and then. But looking at the MiG, and we were thinking, wow, you know, we got F-16s, and these guys are flying with this. It was a learning experience.
What did that season teach you?
The season of being at Bosnia,
Of being deployed?
being deployed? Well, you know, I was doing being an immigrant, and you know, everybody talks about that now, but I was paying back, you know, the best country in the world. You know, I felt the purpose to say thank you, and doing that by service.
You did 9 years active.
Yep.
And 12 reserve, correct?
Yes.
You reached the rank of Tech Sergeant. What leadership lesson from the military still guide you today?
Being honest, and being do what you say. So being accountable, right? So if you do something good, great. If you do something that you made a mistake, own up to it. And I think the more you can do that, you know, it teaches those people that you may be leading, you know, that, you know, it's okay to mess up. I say part of learning is messing up. And you're not always correct, you're not always right. And leadership is being able to, you know, bring a team together from different cultures, different states, even from different states. I remember, you know, being in Bosnia, I was friends with this kid from Mississippi, and we couldn't be more different. and being in close quarters like that, you become friends, and you learn about each other, right? And so I would say that, being accountable.
I love that answer, because our number one core value in the Air Force is integrity first.
Yes.
And you basically recited that.
Yeah.
In '96 now, you get an amazing phone call from Firefighter Pepe Fernandez.
No, he was the head of human resources.
Of human resources, Pepe
Yes.
Fernandez.
Yes.
He was worked for Miami-Dade Fire Rescue, and he said, "Hey, come over to Fire Rescue."
No.
How did that go?
So I was already in the process, and I got orders to go to Bosnia. So of course you have to keep everybody updated. So I had to let Pepe know that I was. And
deploying.
he was one of those angels in your life, right? And so I tell him, you know, sorry, sir, you know, I got orders. I'm in the process. And he looks at where I was going, and I was going to be stationed in Hungary, which was close to Romania. And he's a very learned man. You know, he liked to read. And so he tells me a story about Vlad the Impaler. And he goes, and that's basically where the story of Dracula comes from. And he told me, you know, what he was. He was, you know, he was a bad guy, obviously. And when he killed somebody, he would like to put their body on a stake to let him know, hey, you know, I don't mess around. And he says, Bernie, don't worry. Do what you got to do, and we're going to save a place for you. So that's what happened. Went off to Bosnia, and I came back, and a few months later, I get a phone call. I'll never forget. I still think about that phone call, because it changed my life, and it changed the life of my family.
What did that moment feel like?
I wish there was a word that could explain it. You know, it's like winning the lotto 1,000,000 times, because we all want our lives to have purpose. And when I received that phone call from Pepe, that's the way I felt. And the excitement, I mean, I was like, I sat on my couch, and I gotta be honest, I cried, you know. And it's been 30 years have gone like that, and I get emotional still thinking about it.
So let me take you back to entering Miami-Dade College Fire Academy class 79 and 80, because you told me you were a combined class in 1997.
Yeah.
Walking into the academy after being in the Air Force with all this life experience, did you have to kind of humble yourself?
You know, I went in very humble. I was awestruck, you know. The instructors I had were great, like one in particular that was a great instructor, Nick Marion.
Okay.
You know, he used to make me do the towers. Let's go do towers. And Nick was always a wealth of information, just a fun guy. But yeah, being at Miami-Dade, at the academy there, it set the foundation for what I was going to become for the next 30 years. You know, the guys that were there that were instructors, they had a passion for instructing. And so, you know, that's part of the whole thing. You know, I'm sitting on the shoulders of the great men and women of Miami-Dade Fire Rescue who came before me. And I don't take that lightly. And then I've had the pleasure and the privilege to work for them as well, you know. So you have supervisors or your officers that you come into contact with as you go through your career, you know. And some of the officers that made huge impacts in my life and became my friends.
We'll talk about those in a bit. Now, being in the academy, while we're here, you know, I have to express gratitude to Chief Paul Noel, who is a former Miami-Dade Fire Rescue
great
chief,
individual,
who tremendously supports this mission. And myself, I'm grateful to him to allow us to be doing what we're doing. And not just him, but also the upper management of the North Campus and the people that are truly supportive of this show, that are allowing us to be here. So thank you, Chief Noel, and
Chief.
North Campus, and everybody that supports this show. Now, what do you remember most about your experience going through Fire Academy at MDC?
First of all, I would wake up at 4 in the morning, and again, being afraid of being late, because you know what that means, right?
You're out.
You're out. And I try to tell it to young people, you know, that they seem to just not understand that late, you know, what's the saying?
The early bird gets the worm.
That's right, and it's so true. So, and if you're on time, you're late. And it really kind of starts with, how bad do you want this? So going back to me wanting this job, I have 3 beautiful children, right? And they're the love of my life. But when you have 3 little children and you need to make sure that you can provide for them and you need a job, you're going to do anything you can to do that. So, and I'm talking to Christopher, Amanda, and Natalie, I love you with all my life. But they were my motivation to make sure that I showed up on time and that I got through there. So, you know, there were hard days, you know, tough, but I always had that carrot, you know, and that's what really helped me. And also, the instructors wanted us to get through, and so they worked overtime to try to help us to get through.
You just mentioned the instructors. Were there any instructors who left a mark on you that you can remember?
Yeah, Nick Marion.
Nick Marion.
Yeah, Nick Marion made a huge impact on me, you know. And he had just, I think he was a fire and he was transitioning, and I think he was just getting selected for lieutenant. And he stayed a friend throughout his whole career, so.
Awesome.
Yeah, and
awesome.
They were all great. But it's just when you say somebody that was just there pushing you and being also military, you know, that's what I remember. Fred Riveron was also a great instructor.
Now, mentioning the military, how did your military background help you through the academy, and where did it challenge you?
Well, being in the military, I understood, you know, rank structure, what was expected of you. I had great mentors in the military who happened to be firefighters with Miami-Dade. You know, I can name firefighter George Carbonell. That was a big impact. Paul Smith was my fire chief on the military side, you know, and we worked a couple of times together out in the field. And so, and all these other firefighters that were from other departments that were part of that reserve unit, you know, great guys. So there was a lot of mentorship. That's another thing that's wonderful about the fire department. It's a brotherhood, but it's also based on passing on not only legacy, but past experiences, you know. They're teaching you through what they went through to make you better. And that's where I'm at now. You know, I'm a senior firefighter, but when I have time to speak to young firefighters, you know, there's a lot of things I want to tell them that maybe I wasn't said or told, that makes a big difference in your career moving forward.
I agree. So academy life goes by, you graduate from MDC, you become a Miami-Dade Fire Rescue firefighter. Your first assignment was Station 36 in the hammocks. What was rookie year like?
Rookie year was, you had to be, you know, in your rookie book, You had to answer the door, you had to answer the phones, you had to be on top of stuff. And so, you know, firehouse etiquette. And just be prepared for anything. Some of the best calls I ever had was, you know, my first 6 months at 36. You know, calls that, you know, not that I have suffered from PTSD, but calls that were like, you know, wow, you know, that person survived after, you know, that traumatic, whatever situation that was in, you know. So it was a learning experience. Didn't sleep a lot, you know, a lot of calls, and I just loved every minute of it.
Okay. You then transferred to Station 11, Carroll City back
Fighting
then,
11.
right?
Yeah, Fighting 11.
Everything changed for you.
Yeah.
What made Station 11 different?
The amount of calls, the types of calls. In my mind, I can still hear the radio going, "Squirt 11, can you clear? Squirt 11, can you clear?" And you know, there were shifts where we had 4 and 5 calls after midnight. I remember one particular day we had 3 code 1s, and then I remember getting a call. It was like 5 in the morning, and I knew that the alarm office kind of like felt bad for us, and they say, "Hey, Squirt 11, you got a call." And it was where we had to go move a patient that was 500 pounds, and they couldn't get off the ground, and that was, you know, we're exhausted, and we walk in, and now it's the logistics of how do we try to get this person back into bed. And that's another great thing about this job, you know, it's the teamwork. And another one of my favorite officers, Captain Louis Fernandez, he always said, you know, we might not all be the sharpest tool in the shed, right? But as a team, we can figure it out. And it's that aspect of working as a team to figure out whatever comes at you, which is one of the great things about this job. It's, you just never know. And then sometimes you'll come on a call where you're talking about it, you know, 30 years later.
So being at Station 11, you ran a ton of calls, right?
Yep.
Trauma, shootings, nonstop runs, vehicle accidents, fires. Was there a call that changed you?
A call that changed me.
Or something memorable that you look at back at 11 and that call stands out. You don't have to be, you know, too specific to not release any private information.
There was a call. We were up all night, and it was a call that affected me, you know. So, and we had a call where this gentleman had been in some kind of brawl, and he had a bottle broken over his head, so he's bleeding. We ran, and so we kind of patch him up. Guy came out of the woods, kind of, you know. We patch him up, and he was a bit inebriated. And so, you know, pretty soon we patch him up. Now we're going to go on to another call. So probably about 2 hours later, we get another call. Now it's like 4 in the morning. We get a call, and I'll never forget this call. And we get a call of child not feeling well. Okay. So we go and we find the house in 11th territory, and we see 2 women outside with a baby, and they're rocking the baby back and forth. And as we're getting out of the truck, the same guy that we had run on 2 hours before comes up to us, and he goes, "Hey, you know, you guys helped me out, but now can you help my baby out?" So as I'm approaching the child, I can see the child's breathing like, and I can almost read her breathing. I'm watching as I'm walking out, but I can see also that the child's got a lot of, looks like sores. But I can just, the thing that kind of catches my eye is that she's breathing very, very fast. And that's never a good thing. And the mother right away says to me, "My child has HIV." And then the father chimes in, "Well, you don't want to take care of her?" You know, like, and I go, "No, sir, that's fine. We're going to take care of her, you know, but, you know, we just have to be cautious, and we're going to make sure that we have our PPE on." And I remember, you know, trying to care for the child and also try to alleviate the parents that we're going to try to do as much as we can. But, you know, her breathing, you know, we could barely get her blood pressure. and she had been sick like that because they weren't giving her antiviral medication, and she died a day later. And that affected me because I was like, wow, you know, if the parents had done what needed to be done, maybe the child. So those, you know, that's one of the calls that I remember from being at Station 11.
Looking back now, how much of your foundation was built at Station 11?
A lot. You know, I saw there were so many calls we went on, and the thing was seeing that the disparity, right? I grew up in Miami Springs, a very Mayberry type of, you know, and in Levin's territory you have a lot of different areas, and the economics of it, you know, a poor population, and so doesn't make any difference. You're going to go on the same call, but understanding it was a learning experience for me personally as a person, saying, wow, I was very fortunate to grow up where I did.
Good. So from Station 11, you moved on to Station 12, right? You spent many years at Station 12. Station 12 is at Miami International Airport. What makes airport firefighting different than being at a Station 11 style?
Well, first thing is you're going to have a different type of environment being around aircraft continuously, right? You know, so there's a noise aspect, there's movement constantly, and going out to the airport, and I grew up across from the airport in Miami Springs, literally 4 blocks away. MIA is its own city unto itself, right? So you have to learn, there's all these intricate places that you go to on different calls and trying to find them, and then I can hear one of my friends that helped get me there, Brett Biller, whose father was a fire chief at the airport, and Brett grew up there, and he would make sure that we went out on a daily basis and he knew places that nobody else knew, you know, and we'd go here and go there, and it made a big difference because you get a call, you got to get there, and not only that, you have to have your IDs, and you got to get through security doors and all that. So it was just a different dynamic. So I was on the engine, being the rookie per se out there, and we ran on a lot of calls, but they were different because there were people coming on airplanes. I never knew how many people have heart attacks on aircraft. I learned that being at Station 12. You know, so, you know, you'd show up and somebody would be unconscious, you know, pulseless, and, you know, you're doing CPR, and, you know, so that ring down from the tower was always, you know, and when you had to get there fast.
For those that don't know, and I want you to kind of break down the airport division for Miami-Dade Fire Rescue. So Station 12 is out of Miami International Airport.
Right. And
then Air Rescue South and North. How does it all work for your department?
Okay, so you're part of the airport division 6, and Battalion 6, excuse me. And so, you know, MIA is major, right? And it's right there between all the major runways, right? Because that you want to make sure that you can get to the first runway in the fastest amount of time, right? In under 3 minutes. So you have Station 59, which is also our hazmat station, but it's also ARFF. And then we have Air Rescue North and Air Rescue South.
Where is Air Rescue North? Is it Opelika?
Is it Opelika?
Opelika Airport. And this is Air Rescue South?
Right.
Tamiami.
Tamiami.
I still call it Tamiami Airport.
Yeah, I still do.
It'll
too.
always be just like Joe Robbie.
Right.
It's always Joe Robbie Stadium.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so more for those that are watching and don't understand the airport division of Miami-Dade Fire Rescue, right, which is such a large department.
Well, and the important thing too, that you have to have the certification for our firefighting, and you have to be able, so, you know, also the ID is important. You know, they call it the blue ID, you know, and the FAA has a lot to do with that. And so you're able to work at those, if you don't have that ID.
So it's like a security clearance?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a different security clearance.
Okay. Okay. And for those that don't know, ARFF is ARFF, Aircraft Rescue Firefighting. So what is it like operating Foam 24?
But I have to go back if I can.
Go ahead, this is your
So
show.
going back to 12, we talk about people that made a very big difference in your life.
Because we're gonna get to that in a little bit.
Okay.
But go ahead, tell me now.
So when I go to Station 12, there's a lot of people.
Oh, PA, huh?
Yeah, PA. So going to Station 12, there were a lot of older firefighters, a lot of mentors, a lot of friends. Being at 12, there's a lot of learning to go on, the different foam trucks, different aircraft, the runways, taxiways. And so there was an influx of new blood, I would call it. And I was on the engine, and so we got a new lieutenant. And sometimes you just click with somebody, right? And for me, it was Captain Elvin Gonzo. And he was a huge part of my development, a huge part of just, being a mentor, then becoming my best friend, right? And we got great stories, but one of the things that I mentioned, or that we would always talk about, was our story with the sailboat Tristan and running out of fuel going through government cut. He tells me, it's just he and I, and he goes, "Hey Bernie, we got enough fuel?" And I don't know much, right? We'd been drinking a little bit, and I pick up the gas tank, I go like this, "Yeah, we got fuel." And halfway through government cut, the engine cuts out. There's no fuel. And he lost it, and here we are. And I still laugh to that day. That's one of my favorite memories with him, but he was wonderful, and we were there for a long time together, and kind of grew up together. And so it was a great time, probably the funnest time I've ever had working at a fire station. And it really just the platform or the foundation for what was to come,
And I love it that you mentioned Captain Gonzalez. He's part of our cadre at Miami-Dade College Fire Academy, and he's an integral part of teaching our students and recruits. So
what a human being.
Amazing.
And his family, I just love all of them. Yeah.
So you, back to that question, you ended up leaving 12 and coming down south to Air Rescue South. How is it operating Foam 24?
So if 12 was, how would I put it? 12 was amazing. 24 has been just a blessing, in so many ways. I'm on a great shift, B shift, right? And I got to say that every shift here is great. The people, the professionals that we have here, the passion that they have to do their job. Air rescue is special. The guys really have to be at the top of their game to be here. And but just like, I've mentioned some of the officers that made big impacts, and they were while I was at MIA. After Elvin left, and I have to mention him, was Captain Juan Grandes. And funny thing about him says, Juan always knows, and it was true, because one of the smartest guys you're ever going to meet, and he always did have an answer for everything, right? Very passionate, great mentor to have. And then, and now finally here, I'm the last part of my career. I don't think I could be more blessed to end it at a place better than here. And the reason being, and I'm going to say it about him, is my lieutenant that I have now, Sergio Ramos. He's been a godsend, and whenever he's here, he's just a ray of sunshine. Comes in, and everybody, he's quick-witted, and but he just knows how to bring a team together, and everybody, and he's missed when he's not here because he's loud. He's Cuban, so he's loud. He doesn't need a megaphone. And we'll say stuff in the station, and he goes, yeah, I'm Cuban, that's why I'm loud. And so he and I have a banter back and forth, and so everybody else jumps in. And a lot of times, you know, and you've noticed it already this morning, I get a lot of flack from the guys. And they're going to tell you, well, Bernie, but if we didn't love you, we wouldn't bother you as much. And so don't love me so much.
Oh, I can tell that they love you because they've been on you since I stepped in the door. It's been a fun time, right?
Nice.
So it's very active runway that I see back here. You know, for a smaller airport.
Yeah.
When you roll that truck, what responsibility sits in your head?
Well, for me, if I'm driving the truck, is trying to get to wherever the situation as quickly as possible and as safely as possible, right? And be prepared for whatever happens. And then if I'm the hand lineman, then being prepared for whatever I need to be, right? So it's our dual. We have the firefighting, we also have the medical aspect. You know, we've had calls where we've had to go out and people had, you know, heart attacks or whatever, and we've had to deal with that. Or, you know, we've had alert threes. Alert threes when an aircraft has actually crashed. Fortunately, we've had some where people have actually passed away. You know, I mean, real crashes where, and other ones where they've crashed, but you know, there's only been damage to the aircraft, and fortunately, the passengers have been okay.
Okay. So very busy.
So yeah, so whenever the ring down, it's, you know, you don't take your time. I mean, you're being very quick to the scene.
So now let's move on to your teaching days, huh? You're a legend, brother. You teach at Gordon Center for 20 years.
Yes.
Why teach?
You know, for me, it was just a natural progression of what I like. I've always loved medicine. And I remember taking a class when I was told about going to the Gordon Center, right, at the University of Miami. You know, the University of Miami, and I went to a class, and so I have to really mention a couple of people there that made a huge difference in my life. Angel Brotens, he was a battalion chief in the Keys. He's the director for pre-hospital at the Gordon Center. And I watched a firefighter give a class on 12 lead interpretation. He's now the chief for City of Miami, Robert Evia. And it was one of the best classes I've ever seen. And I was thinking, you know, wow, this is a firefighter giving this class. And I was mesmerized with it. So after class, I walked up to Robert and I said, you know, I'm amazed at the class, you know, how did you become this? And he took the time to kind of mentor me and gave me some information. He said, if you're really interested in teaching here, you know, you should talk to Angel Brotens. And I did. And
Al Broden.
And so, you know, I said, you know, I would love to be part of this. And it's hard to believe it's 20 years later, 2005. And it has helped me be a better firefighter, paramedic. Because when you teach something, you know, and I have a passion for that. And people have mentioned it, you know, hey, you know, you're a really good instructor, I hope. And so I was at my friend's house, Dr. Hector Rivera, at his house. And Dr. Gordon was invited to his child's birthday. And when the party was ending, you know, he was leaving, and I was leaving as well with my wife. And Dr. Gordon stopped me for a second, and he goes, he just wanted to say, hey, I just want to tell you, you do a wonderful job, and thank you for being part of the Gordon Center. In front of my wife, and my wife, you know, Dr. Gordon is a legend, because he's the one that started the Harvey, which the Harvey is the mannequin that's all over the world, and to be, you know, actually addressed by him. So he had a famous saying, if you want to go fast, go by yourself. If you want to go far, go with, you know,
collective,
with your people, you know, with a group, go with a group. And he made an analogy of, like, you know, the amount of people we teach at the Gordon Center, and we teach people how to save lives, you know, with ACLS and PALS and everything they do, you know, and you multiply that out, how many people they're going to come into contact with, and hopefully, you know, save because of what we've taught them here today. So yeah, I'm very proud to be a part of the Gordon Center as well.
How did it feel to get that compliment from Dr. Gordon?
My wife was kind of speechless, and I was kind of like, wow. I was touched. I was like, you know, at that time, it's funny, I'd been working for him for about 15 years.
Sir, how you doing?
Hey, how's it going?
See, we're in the active fire station. What's up, guys?
Filming.
Nice to meet you, Carlos.
We're actually filming.
Say hi to the cameras while you guys are.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Everything good? Highlighting Bernie on the job, Miami-Dade College.
Yeah, it's an actual fire station.
Yeah, man. This is part of the job. This is
Yeah.
this is the uniqueness about the show, that nothing stops around here.
Yeah.
Duty continues, the mission continues, and we keep it rolling. So, with that being said,
No, I got one more mentor.
tell me.
From the Gordon Center that he, and that's Marco Gonzalez, and someone you're going to know very well, Chief De La Rosa. They work with me at the Gordon Center. So at the Gordon Center, we've had some people that really are truly superstars in our field that have gone through there and that have been mentors to me. So they mean a lot.
Absolutely, that's a phenomenal entity, and they do a lot. I still go to the Gordon Center to take classes. Our department sends us there, and I mean, we were just there a few weeks ago as you were teaching me some stuff. Now, you also teach at MDC Medical Campus.
Yeah.
For the past few years.
Yeah.
What does that mean to you?
It means a lot. I mean, again, everything is about mentorship in the fire department, right? You want to pass on what you know. It's not like I'm going to keep it. You pass it on because you want your fellow or brother firefighters to be, as good as they can be. So I got a great fortune, and I'm just very blessed. I got to look at. So now I work for Jesus Sola, who's an amazing person. He's a chief with Miami Beach, and Alfredo Esprilla, he was a chief with Hialeah. Those became very quickly two mentors that I have, and so I really enjoy it because it's just a different group of guys. These are all young men and women that want to become firefighters with the department somewhere, and so you're able to kind of mold them and help them, because that's really where I am. And when I've seen some of the young men and women that I've helped become firefighters, wherever they're at, that's a sense of pride for me. That I had something to do with that.
It's rewarding, huh?
Beyond rewarding, yeah.
You mentioned certain mentors, Captain Elvin Gonzalez, and correct my names if I'm wrong, Captain Juan Grandes, Louis Fernandez, Captain Louis Fernandez, and Lieutenant Sergio Ramos. What did those men model that you try to carry forward?
They just model professionalism in every sense. I mean, they're very good at their job, right? But beyond that, they were exceptional human beings, and they expressed that, on the job, and when they were interacting with the public. We go on calls, and you could see their empathy and their compassion. And that has always been a very important thing for me. They were just all great. It's hard to say like supervisor, but mentors. I mean, and sometimes if there was something that probably needed a little tweaking, it was the way they talked to me. They'd say, "Hey, Bernie, next time, let's do it this way, that way." It was a constant trying to become better, and just their humanity, just what type of people, what type of, husband, what type of brother, what type of father, what type of friend, and just the way they led.
What separates a boss from a leader?
A boss, I think, because they have the moniker boss, that people are supposed to, pay attention to you for whatever the reason, because you could be a good or bad boss, right? A leader earns it. He learns it every day, by the way he holds himself to the standards that he holds, right? So if he holds himself to certain standards, you're going to want to emulate that as well, you know. And it's just that professionalism and that desire to do well. It's intrinsic. I think that's the word I'm looking for. It comes from inside.
Okay. Now retirement is approaching in the coming years for you. What matters most to you now?
Leaving a legacy, you know, that, I hope I don't cry about this, but
The guys are gonna love you inside if you do.
yeah, I've thought about it. It's hard to believe that 30 years have gone by that quickly, and that probably at the end of 27 I'll be done, and it's going to be hard to leave this. And what I'm going to miss the most is just the camaraderie, sitting around the kitchen table, laughing, having a good time, talking about life, you know, because these people become your family, your brothers, your sisters. And another person that I got to mention, which I called him, he was the station sage, and you're going to probably know him. A lot of people that are watching is going to know him. Call him Dan the Man, Dan Murray, the T-shirt man. Been selling T-shirts for, and because of him, really, he made a difference in my life, because I've had an issue with AFib for about 15 years, and he had it. And through his diligence, he found one of the best people in the world to deal with that. And I was able to also be seen by him, by that doctor. And so we've been able to manage that. But Dan was always somebody at the station that was, you could go for advice with life, with finance, with whatever. But he was just somebody that still to this day, that when I see him, I bring a smile to my face, because, you know, it's great to hear. And he's got a beautiful family. And so one of his sons, Riley, is getting on the fire department. So there's that aspect. And talking about that, you know, firefighters, you know, what kind of people we are. My daughter Amanda, who's a nurse practitioner at Holtz Children's Hospital, her husband is a City of Miami firefighter. And
How does that feel? A county against a city? I know you guys got a big rivalry.
you know, I don't have a rivalry, because I love them both.
I know.
And when I teach,
It's all in good fun.
when I teach the guys from the City of Miami, I always say, hey, look, we're family, because, you know, Kenny Zapato's my son-in-law, and he's given me 2 beautiful grandchildren. So I love you guys as well. And,
Awesome.
Really, firefighters, it doesn't matter from where, you know, we speak the same language. And when you're coming, how we started, how you wanted to start this before the cameras, you know, you want me to speak from the heart. And the whole time I've spoken from the heart. And when I teach from the heart, because I was one of those guys. So, and I know I've made a difference, because a lot of guys will come up and say, man, you know, you taught me wherever. And it's a wonderful feeling. When we go back, we want a purpose. Mm-hmm. And a lot of us end up in this career field because that's what we wanted. So I've had the dual, you know, being a firefighter and also being an instructor.
You know, this brings us into this transition that during our call, you said something that really stuck with me, and it said, being a firefighter isn't a career, it's a calling. When you say calling, what does that actually mean?
Thank you for bringing that up, because I was thinking about that, because I knew we were going to have this. It becomes a vocation, right? It becomes who you are. And when we talk about vocation is like a priest takes a vow. And I think, and I'm talking to all the young firefighters out there, you know, when you want to become a firefighter, you're taking a vow, you're taking this vocation, and what you need to do is to try to become constantly better, you know, through your mentorships, through your own, I mean, like you were talking about how you became who you are. You did a lot of your own work to become and to make this grow how it has. And I remember you talking to the guys in the station that you taught yourself, and there's nothing you can't. You know, there's so much information out there, but it's the diligence, it's the want to become better and to want to learn your craft. And so, you know, always try to become better by learning your craft on a daily basis.
Okay. Now, if you had to define this job in one sentence, what is it?
Service.
Service. That's it. Ready to serve, right? That's
Yeah.
that's the Miami-Dade Fire Rescue motto.
Yeah.
Well, now, we're almost done here. A few more questions.
Okay.
Looking at the recruits that sit in our classrooms and those students in the medical campus that are becoming paramedics, what advice would you give young firefighters coming into Miami-Dade Fire Rescue?
And, you know, and I know that you feel that way about your fire department as being the best. And I think each firefighter that belongs to whatever fire department should believe that, right? Because you're a family, you're a team, and you're going to do the best you can. So for those young firemen that are going to be coming in to what I call my department, it's our department, but
It is yours.
yeah,
so.
is to bring your best foot forward, to want to do the best job that you can, and to know that you will eventually leave a legacy, and it's up to you.
And the final question, when you hang up that helmet for the last time, what do you want people to remember about Firefighter Bernie Montoya?
That he was a great guy. Yeah. You know, that he did his best. I knew you were going to do that. I love what I do. In fact, I can tell you for the last 30 years, I've never come to work. It's been a lot of fun. So yeah.
They say if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life.
That's it.
I guess we're both in the same boat, my brother.
Yep.
Bernie, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you for your service in the Air Force and at home here at Miami-Dade Fire Rescue. It's about showing up. To everyone watching, remember what Bernie has said. This isn't just employment, it's responsibility, it's service, and it's not a job, it's a calling. I'm Carlos Martinez. This is On the Job, Alumni in Action, Miami-Dade College Fire Rescue. Stay safe and see you on the next episode. Thank you, Bernie. It's a wrap.
Pleasure.
Love you, brother.
Thank you. Love you.
All right.